Welcome, everyone. We will begin in 1 minute. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special webinar, Better Together, How to Streamline Your ERP and Quality Processes with ProShop and High QA. I am Lisa Sterling, your host and moderator for today's session. Today, we are going to take a look at why streamlining your ERP and quality processes can dramatically improve efficiencies and production for your shop. But before we get started, I would like to mention just a couple of housekeeping items. We invite you to ask questions throughout the presentation by typing in your Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, as your phone is muted during the session. We will address the questions received at the end of the presentation. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available in a few days for playback. I would now like to introduce you to our presenters for today. We have Brian Anderson, Technical Advisor for ProShop, as well as Chris Mendocino, Vice President of Product for High QA. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Chris to get us started.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join this session. Hopefully, we find it really valuable and we give you some new insights into how you're able to work more efficiently with ProShop and High QA together. Just real quick thing to get out of the way. I'm a little bit under the weather today, so I'll try to mute as best I can if I to avoid the sniffles, but apologies if anything sneaks through. And so I just wanted to start the session off today, or we wanted to start the session off today with a quick intro as to why ProShop and High QA have been partners together for so long. I think we've been partnered together for somewhere around 4 or 5 years now. And a lot of that has to do with the combination of value that we saw between the two companies. There was, in addition to just like functional value that you'll see today as we outline kind of some of the feature benefits of the different packages, but there's also kind of a lot of similarities in the way that the companies were both either established or the way that we operate. And a lot of that being that the people that started these companies, High QA and ProShop, and the people that work here, we have a really unique set of background and experience and domain knowledge about the manufacturing sector. And it's fairly well diversified too. So in a lot of ERP companies, you typically have ERP experts. In a lot of quality companies, you have quality experts, right? But there's actually among the founders and the top executives or management teams, there's actually a pretty diverse set of backgrounds across manufacturing. Even a lot of us have, programmed CNC machines on the floor, right? And run parts through their life cycles where we have CAD, CAM backgrounds, PLM, ERP, all of that. And that brings a nice, well-rounded perspective to how we develop these products and how we allow them to integrate and for a ideal experience for you guys overall. And another point on that too is that, with today, you're going to have multiple software systems in one way or another to run your business. And so the expectation from our standpoint is that those software packages should be able to seamlessly integrate with one another to provide an overall as efficient as possible experience for your operations, so that you can connect everything from quote to shipping without any redundancy in data entry between the different systems, or without any kind of significant manual workarounds. And so I say that to point out that what you'll see today, we're currently doing, and we have been for the last few years, a CSV data exchange. And something that I'll just tease right now, but we'll get into at the end of the session, is we've been talking for a while about a more tightly integrated solution or a connection between the two products. And that's something that we'll be able to talk a little bit more about what's coming up in the next few months here, as we're getting closer to having a variety of scenarios and use cases supported through actual API connections with live data exchange. So I'll tease that real quick, and then just know that we'll get to that at the end of the session. All right. And with that, we just wanted to show one quote from one of our joint customers, just as a example of some of the benefits there. So I'm not going to read through this exactly, but we have a couple of quotes throughout the flow here, just to show you some of the impact that these products are having on customers when utilized together. Something I noticed personally is that ProShop and High QA seem to be unique products within the market overall. Me personally, I've actually worked with both companies throughout my career, because I was actually highly interested or impressed with the way that the technology was being built and the way that it was differentiated within the industry. So hopefully that comes across today, and hopefully you guys are able to learn some things and see some new value that you're able to get out of the two systems working together. So with that, we'll pass it over to Brian Anderson with ProShop.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, as Chris mentioned, for spending your time with us today. That was a great intro, and really kind of helped, set the stage for some of the stuff that I want to chat about today. And really, I think you really nailed it right on the head there with being a very, very capable solution to, in our case, to ERP needs, but also being open and able to connect. So we'll kind of touch on some of that as we kind of move through my slides today. Now, ProShop, for those of you that don't know, was actually built in a machine shop. So when we came into being, we were a small machine shop. We were founded in 1997 in Monroe, Washington, and very small. So there's actually a little bit of a picture of the original owners in the original space, of course, before we moved any machines in or anything. And we were using Excel to manage the business. Excel, QuickBooks, Word, Microsoft Project, lots of disconnected systems. So you can imagine, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced what that's like to try to run a business or even do parts of a business and have things separated and then have to spend time to bring those things together. So as we were growing, actually 2000 is the year that I came to the company. I'm a machinist by trade. So as Chris mentioned, we have a wide background in the industry. But we were outgrowing Excel and we started searching for another solution. We looked at all the usual suspects, from the very expensive enterprise level ERPs to the more job shop based stuff. And we were just underwhelmed. We did not see anything that would meet the needs. In fact, we were already doing more with Excel than what these other softwares were offering us. So we hired a web developer and started building ProShop. And originally, of course, being a small machine shop, we were really focused on our own company, managing what we needed to manage, and managing the growth that we were experiencing. So we, in the Pacific Northwest, definitely had a large amount of aerospace work that we were doing. So we continue to develop the system to meet all of those needs, meet the needs of our clients, the quality systems that needed to be there, and continue to just build it in one software. Now, over the next several years, we experienced very strong growth. We actually, of course, in the early 2000s, everyone knows the economic downturn that we experienced, especially in the aerospace industry. And we weathered the storm and actually came out stronger. All the while, it was us building the software that helped us manage it and actually get through that. So in fast forward a little bit to 2008. Oh, sorry, mix my slides up there. Fast forward a little bit to 2008. We actually had an employee working for us on the weekends. He was moonlighting with us. And his primary job was actually at South Arrow Marine, which was one of our largest customers at the time. Now, he had worked with us on the weekend and went back to his main company and said, hey, you know, they're doing this great work with this software. I think that we should incorporate it and see what we can get out of it. And of course, as they approached us about that prospect, we were like, what do we know about software? We're a machine shop. But they were persistent, and so we helped them implement it. And in the first year, they saw such dramatic improvement on many aspects of their company. That would be things like on-time delivery, overhead reductions, increases in throughputs, increases in profits, that at that point, the founders really took a step back and evaluated what we had created and realized that we were really on to something that wasn't just valuable to us, but was actually valuable to the industry as a whole. And that's really where a lot of this conversation today takes root, is that from the very beginning here as a software company, we've believed that the industry needs to be better, more efficient, faster, and more responsive to the marketplace than it already is. And how can we do that? Well, the best way that we can do that is to shed the manufacturing company, which the founders did in 2014, and spin off ProShop and focus on the software side. And how can we help integrate that throughout the industry and help many different customers realize what their true capabilities are. And of course, working with other companies like High QA to help make that possible. So how does ProShop do this? Well, first of all, internally, what we do is we kind of control everything from the front door to the back door, whether we're talking about doing estimating and project management, managing purchases and inventories, understanding schedules and backlogs. We'll be able to see how all of that comes together in a single system. Visualizing work instructions. So one of the things that I think differentiates ProShop from a lot of the other options out there, in fact, almost every other option out there, is the fact that we really do focus on every single role in the company, whether that's somebody in the front office, somebody that works in purchasing or receiving, or right down to the shop floor, whether it's running parts or doing machine maintenance. All of those different things are actually tracked and addressed within the ProShop environment. We also, especially since we came from the aerospace industry, wanted to incorporate quality. Now, when I say we wanted to incorporate quality, this is not something that we just added on. This is actually features that are built in the ProShop that will help manage everything from the top level quality manual all the way down to shop floor inspections. And we do it all digitally. Everyone knows that you know, the industry definitely started on paper. Everything right from drawings to managing the business and managing the accounts, et cetera. But of course, here we are in 2022, approaching 2023. That's not the way of the world anymore. And so we, right from the beginning, in 2000, when we started developing the software, we knew that we needed to move into a digital and a paperless environment. And that has been core in our transitions and in our evolution through the entire process. And it will maintain that as we continue to grow. A few of the key components here, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but estimating and quoting. You know, one of the things that we need to do is really understand what the customer needs, what our capabilities and processes are, and be able to put together pricing for them very quickly, whether we're talking about a single component that's a prototype run, long-term production run with repeat orders, or complex assemblies, any of that kind of stuff. All of that needs to be quickly evaluated and priced out to the customer so they can get a competitive quote in real time. And then, of course, we can react to that. We want to be able to set up all of our work for success, again, all the way through the company, whether we're talking about that upfront project management, contract review side of things. What are the true requirements? This is really critical when we talk about industries that are controlled with quality system like ISO or AS or even oil and gas industries. We need to be able to know our supply chain. This is especially crucial right now. We need to know, what do we have? What do we need? Can I get it on time? And we need that visibility all the way through. So part of the upfront planning process is going to be able to have a quick visual representation of that, and then be able to react to that and put in place the plan to get the items here that I need, whether that's raw materials or components for assemblies or what have you. Again, we need to know and see what that supply chain looks like. Visibility of targeted time and cost. So this is where, again, we need to know what we have to do. So whether we have estimated the job or not, when we estimated it, we might know that it's going to be 20 hours on a machine and 10 hours in assembly and 2 hours over in part mark. But we need to know that. We need to know it at the beginning and then monitor our progress all the way through. So we need to be able to see that our setup was done and it was done on time. And same with our inspection. Have we actually done the inspection that needs to be done? Did we accomplish it in the time frame that we think that it was going to take? Did we also produce the parts or run the process in the manner that it needed to be run, or was there an issue? And we'll be able to take all of this and see it live, whether it's somebody on the shop floor, somebody in inspection, all of it is evaluated in ProShop, and it's very, very visible. Scheduling is also something that is usually a fairly large topic. There are different ways that we think about scheduling in ProShop. That could be things from the Gantt chart views to know, what's the status of any of the projects that we're on. What is the likelihood that we're going to get it done on time? How much work does it take to get to know this? Do we have to put together reports? Does somebody have to sit down for an hour every morning and figure out where are we? And in ProShop, we wanted to eliminate all of that. We know what it's like to, I personally know what it's like to have to sit down with Excel and Microsoft Project and whiteboards and Post-it notes and run around the shop to try to figure out the status of things. Where are the bottlenecks when we're planning new work? How do we know what resources we have and what capabilities we have? And where can work actually fit in? Sales needs to know that. If they're just going to sell for one value stream, but we have 5 different value streams, they really need to know where our bottlenecks are, what availability and what opportunities they have that they can turn around and help serve their customers. And of course, what do we work on? This is something right on the shop floor. If it's again, somebody standing at a machine, how do they know what to work on? So Gantt charts are a great way to do that. We also have dashboards. I don't have any slides of dashboards. There's different reasons that we might be looking at different scheduling and prioritization tools within ProShop to get people where they need to be. And we want to do it very, very quickly. We incorporate all kinds of tools for, again, letting people know what to work on. So we have a complete digital tool library where they will be able to see what tools are required, how many we have in the bin. Are they in use? Where are they? Are they over in machine A or are they in machine B? We'll have a full library of tools that's situated across both the manufacturing side as well as purchasing and inventory. We'll be able to track equipment and maintenance requirements. This module also tracks calibration for quality systems. If you need to know the calibration status of any inspection equipment, same module. It's actually going to notify people when something is out of calibration or something is due for maintenance. So people, again, don't have to spend a lot of time building reports. They just see right away what needs to happen and they can react to that. As I mentioned before, the quality system is built in. And this is not just a bolt on the side file server. Everything from the top level quality manual all the way through the procedures, training, how it relates to employees, what kind of access they have within the system. All of that is fully integrated within ProShop. And it also incorporates security features. So if we're talking about if you're a company that's in the defense industry, or if you have to work with anything that is ITAR controlled, or you're working on your CMMC compliance or certifications, the tools for those are built into ProShop, because you shouldn't need to take a disconnected system to control files or to control what kind of access people have and what kind of data they can see. All of that is going to be built right in and included within the ProShop system. Handling non-conformances and reporting within the system. So we, of course, want to know when things go well, and we need to know when things don't go well. And so when we do inspections within the system, we'll be able to track non-conformances or corrective actions or returns. Any of those things are actually all built in. There's automations to make sure that if something is entered in out of tolerance, that we can see that right away. And then, of course, we notate that to other employees, whether that's a manager or an inspector or something like that. And once we have this data, we also do automated reporting. So if we're trying to review the previous month's performance and we want to know the scrap rate, or we want to know the performance in a certain area or by a certain employee, all of that is just a couple of clicks away, again, without having to sit down and work through any specific reporting, so to speak. And quality control from the actual inspection perspective. So in this case, I'm actually not going to talk a whole lot here. As you can see, we've got some balloon tagging on the left. We've got an inspection plan on the right. This is really where we're going to start understanding what connections we have with High QA. Because ProShop, albeit a very, very capable system, we don't do everything. There's just some things that we have not, we're not going to be spending time doing. And that's where some of our partnerships come in. And so with High QA, we're able to actually work directly with that software and combine the strengths that they have with the strengths that we have to make a more seamless experience and save everyone time and get them what they need when they need it as quick as possible. A little bit of a quote here before I hand it off to Chris. This is a joint customer of ours between ProShop and High QA. And I won't read the whole thing. It's kind of long here, but basically, I love this quote. It is fantastic, and honestly, it's very humbling to me. This is just how someone can take the tools that we have provided and work from, as he says, work from being a welder to a highly skilled QA manager and running the team with ProShop and High QA and running it in a very effective and very efficient manner. And the time saving here to go from an hour or more to 5 minutes is just an incredible transition and really at the root of why we do what we want to do, because this is the kind of thing that, as I was saying before, the industry needs more of. We need to be able to help people get to a level of efficiency that makes them more competitive, makes them more efficient, and of course more profitable, because that's better for everyone, not just the company, but their customers, their employees, and so on. So anyway, I love this quote. It really kind of captures a lot of what we're talking about today. And with that, I'd like to actually turn it back over to Chris here and let you pick up.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brian. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that particular quote is one of my favorites as well. You can see like the enthusiasm and how we were able to transform his world quite a bit there. Right. All right. If you are able to stop sharing, Brian, I'll take the screen there. All right. Excellent. All right, just quick confirm you're able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So a little bit about High QA. Excuse me. A little bit about High QA and who we are, just for those that may not know us directly. We're a manufacturing quality company that's been around since about 2006 or so, I believe, is when we were founded, but really started taking off post 2015 or so. There was a lot of technology development and such early on with the OCR engine that we built. That's OCR stands for optical character recognition. Okay, so that's the tool that we use to be able to auto balloon drawings, and that was kind of where we started, but we had a vision of where we ultimately wanted to be, and I'll touch more on that in a little bit. But yeah, as a product or as a software provider, we have an extremely expansive platform that's able to address a huge amount of really significant needs within the market related to quality and manufacturing. And so I'll touch on this just briefly, and then we'll kind of focus in on a couple of key areas here in a demo. But one of the major issues that we saw within the market was the lack of tools or common platform for quality and manufacturing engineers to be able to collaborate together. Okay. And so those two areas tend to be siloed fairly significantly. And that's something I liked about ProShop, is that they're able to coordinate or help those teams coordinate among other teams as well within the organization. And with High QA, we're able to do that in a little bit more specific way when it comes to quality planning and inspection planning. Okay, so as a tool set overall, we get into a whole bunch of different areas, but for today, we wanted to kind of focus in on how the ballooning side of things works and how we're able to plan and prep inspection plans to push them up into ProShop. Just a real quick piece here about we're just over 1,000 customers now. Actually, we were just talking this morning. I think this may need to get updated to 1,100, but I'll have to check the count. But this is an example of some of the companies that we work with. So all the way down from like mom and pop shops and all the way up to, multinational conglomerate companies that have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees and everything in between there, right? And we are particularly focused on the aerospace, space, defense, automotive, and medical industries. And we do quite a bit with oil and gas and machinery as well as some other sectors. But I'd say probably these first 5 here are the ones that we are most involved in. Okay, so from there, let's actually jump into a live demo so that you can understand how the auto ballooning side of things works here. So this is the actual High QA software right here. And for those of you that haven't seen it before, what I've done here is started a new part record within our system. So we're a database-driven software built on a SQL database. So this isn't just like one single engineering tool that sits locally on one engineer's PC. This is actually intended to be a client-server model collaboration tool that allows multiple people in the organization throughout quality teams, manufacturing teams, and inspectors, QC personnel, whoever, to be able to collaborate together in one environment. Okay, and so up here, I can click open, and you can kind of see this here, where I'm able to see a list of all of my open parts that I might have, and so I can search up here by part or job to get to the record that I'm working on. Okay, and you can even see that we get into things like ballooning tabulated drawings. So I'm not going to hit on that today in particular, but you can certainly check out, we've done webinars on this about how to balloon tabulated drawings for those of you that might work with those, where we can identify a part as a tabulated master and balloon that, define the permutations on the individual dimensions and their requirements for the specific part numbers under that master, and then with a single click, just break that out into all of the different permutations of the inspection plan. All right. And then each of those could then subsequently be uploaded into ProShop fairly seamlessly. Okay. So for those of you that work with tabulated drawings, that probably makes a lot of sense to you. For those of you that are like, what's a tabulated drawing? Maybe not so much, but that's okay. You don't need it. So so what we have here is this drawing that you can see it's interactive. I can kind of zoom in and around. I can pan with it. And we have a toolbar over here, and this is where all of our characteristics are going to go. Okay, so because in addition to ballooning the drawing, we're actually extracting the requirements from the 2D PDF. And we can do this with both PDFs, TIFFs, and also even 3D models. So we can take CAD models as well, native CAD files from something like, I don't know, NX, Creo, SolidWorks, whatever it is, and import those and extract GD&T requirements from those models if they have PMI data in them. Okay, so if that's something you guys are interested in, certainly reach out and talk to us. I'm not going to be demoing that today, but just be aware that that's something that we're capable of doing. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and just auto balloon this particular one. Now we can auto balloon multiple pages or single page. We have a few settings here that we can use to configure the logic and how things are going to work. But we're just going to leave that as a default, let that run, and we're going to see what we get there. Okay. And so what this is doing is it's actually scanning the drawing and recognizing where all the features are. Okay, and recognizing what's a dimension, what's not a dimension. It's going to add a balloon and extract the requirements to this table here, like you just saw. Okay, so that all happened in about 18, 20 seconds for a drawing like this, which has 34 individual characteristics. We can see that down in the bottom here, right? So super impressive, right? Like, if I do say so myself. And this is something that, you know, anybody that's done this manually, obviously, is taking the time to, you know, mark these up either in Adobe Editor or PowerPoint or something like that. We've seen all kinds of cases, but then the real time consuming piece is populating this table. So you can see the amount of detail we're able to extract here. So these are linked, by the way, these panels. So if I click on like balloon 7, it jumps to balloon 7 on the drawing and so forth here, right? And I have my dim editor over here on the side. And so we're pulling in the dim type, the requirement. If there's multipliers, we're pulling that in here, right? You can see for this this feature here, we have 3 callouts, right? So we have a diameter, thread, and true position, right? And there's 4 instances of them, and the system's able to recognize that. So it has 17.1, 2, and 3 here. And it recognizes that it's a diameter thread, a true position. I have my requirements all spelled out, and we can see all of that. It even knows the tolerance type, right? So it sees that these are just general tolerances. This true position, it's an as limit. Some of the ones in here are basic dimensions. And so it's picking up on all of that based on the standard drawing formatting, right? And so some things that I can do with this, we can actually take this if we wanted to and split this out into multiple sub-characteristics. I'll do that here. And oh, it looks like I don't have a setting turned on. So yeah, I'll just explain this real quick and I'll turn the setting on later. But you see how it broke those line items up into 12 individual line items, right? So now I'm able to actually have 17.123 underscore 1, 17.123 underscore 2, and so on and so forth, because this is actually 12 checks, right? So we can actually distinguish all of those in here automatically, okay? And the setting that I wanted to have turned on here, I might be able to jump to a different part number that's got that setting on, is breaking out the into individual balloons. So having 4 balloons instead of the 1. So it would be 17 underscore 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can drag and drop those over to the area on the drawing that they're referring to. So I can name these 4 holes effectively. So that way, now when I'm collecting data against them, I'm able to see like SBC trends or see pass fail, even if related to individual holes instead of them as a group. Right. So having that resolution can be really significant if you're dealing with really tight tolerance features on specifically related to like mating features and stuff. If it's in like an assembly or something, that can be really significant if one hole is always causing some problems versus it's kind of randomly spread if there's an issue on the part. Okay. Just helps with some of the root cause analysis.
So sorry to interrupt there, Chris. I just wanted to clarify something you just said. So you just indicated that you can have a setting specific to this part number, but if you're working with another project or another part that has different requirements, maybe they don't need to be broken out into 12 separate checks. You can control that by part number. It does not have to be all one way or the other.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I wasn't planning on getting into that side of it, but that's a very good point. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's good. I appreciate being interrupted. So I'll explain where that's coming from. And in doing so, I could probably even modify the setting too. But we do that through what we call part categories. Okay, so part categories are a way for us to actually templatize settings profiles effectively. Like it's a grouping of settings that we can templatize based on specific customer requirements, or maybe it's part types or something like that, right? And so when you create a part, you can pick which part category it should be pulling its settings from. And here I'll show up here. If we go to part categories at the system level now, okay, so I'm looking at all my part categories and I can say, okay, on one versus another, right? I'll pick this like customer B here, for example. These are all the settings that I can configure under that part category. So the one that I was talking about here was, see, under part settings, I can set like, okay, which location is that related to? What types of decimal tables are we using? And these two settings are the one I was talking about here, if whether we want to create sub balloons for the multiplied dims, or if we want to show and show the original balloon. So that's kind of tied to it. So you may want to have those checked on or checked off, depending on the nature of your customer requirements and so on. But there's a lot of other things that we can do in here as well. We can even modify like the aesthetics of the balloon drawing. Maybe you want to have different shapes or colors on the balloon drawing, depending on the customer, right? Or if it's an assembly part versus a detail part, something like that. Or maybe it's like a part that you outsource and you sub out to a supplier versus something made internally. So that way, looking at the print, you can see just based on the colors of the balloons, you know what type of part it is that you're looking at. A lot of our customers will do things like that. There's other things in here for like the sampling rules and such, depending on how you're using the system. And then even what we call PQP settings, where we can define documentation requirements and things of that nature. So yeah, super powerful feature set for this came out for those of you who are customers already, and you're like, hey, I never saw that before. It's because it's a little bit new. It came out in version 7 back in June or so. So if you're not on that version yet, you're interested in this feature set, definitely reach out to us. It's not a paid add-on or anything like that. It's actually part of the core product. So whatever version or package you have, sorry, not whatever version, but whatever package you have, this is part of that feature set.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. That's I do want to also point out that that's really complementary to how we approach the same kind of categorizations within ProShop, where we have ways to associate as well as differentiate between parts, clients, system requirements, and so on. So very, very similar thinking along those terms. And you know, that's just one of the ways that I think our two softwares just really work well together, is we have a very similar approach to a lot of these kinds of structural policies, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think part of that comes down to just being in the industry long enough and understanding the way manufacturing works, that I say this all the time. I ask like customers when I'm working with them, do you have parts that work this way, that way, or some other way? And so you give 3 options and they just answer yes, because they do it all those ways. There's tons of shops that have that. There's just a huge variety of scenarios that you're dealing with. So, okay. So yeah, just pointing out a few other things here as we go on. noticing kind of where we are at with time. So what a typical flow here would be, we bring the drawing in, we're doing our initial ballooning. We have a full-blown DIM editor over here on the side. So if there's anything that needs to be configured here, where we would start applying things like, aside from checking to make sure that the characteristics are accurate, that the requirements are accurate, right? It's a diameter DIM type. What type of tolerance are we pulling from? If it's general, that means we're pulling from the tolerance table associated with this part. Nominal tolerances are all correct, notes, blah, 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 right? So aside from the specifics coming from the drawing, right, we're dialing all of that in. And we're also assigning things like the gauge category, right? So we have an entire gauge library where we can track gauges. We can have the gauge categories kind of selectable from the drop-down list here and so on. We can apply what we call designators. So like the criticality of the feature, right? It's a critical, major, minor. You may have custom designators that you use even across different customers potentially, right? So on a per job basis, even you can get down to that granularity. You could have unique designators per part, per job that are unique to that record, right? And it really depends on a combination of like customer requirements, like in terminology, what they call things, and then what you call things internally, because you'll have customer critical features, and then you'll have your own like manufacturing critical features, whatever you call them for your shop. Okay. So we'd be able to assign all those, assign our sampling rules, like so. We can click and pick different sampling rules and logic that we want to apply here. All of this able to be exported and shared directly into ProShop. Okay. One other piece here as well. I'll go to what we call manufacturing operations. So most of you probably are not making turnkey widgets. Most shops working with ProShop or High QA, they're making slightly more complex parts that go through multiple operations. So you don't just, you're not just building a final inspection plan, you're actually building in-process inspection plans for each stage of the manufacturing process typically. So doing that in our system is really straightforward. I can just kind of window select or hold down control to select a couple of specific balloons that I want to check at an operation, say add operation here. And there we go. We have an op. We'll call this maybe op 50, and we'll say it's op 50 milling or something, or mill rough or something like that, right? It can be anything. And we can assign a particular work cell, kind of say what process it's linked to. That's getting into something else there. But and then we can keep adding these in here, right? So we can add a whole bunch of operation steps as needed to detail things out. Now, what's happening here is we're not just grouping dimensions or assigning a label to a DIM. We're actually, if we select the operation, we're building a unique inspection plan at that operation step. Okay, so we now have a balloon drawing, and customers have preferences of whether they want the balloons to say the balloon number with a suffix on it for the operation. Some like that, some don't, but you have the control over that. Okay. It is kind of nice that you're able to see when looking at the drawing, oh, this is definitely for op 50 because that's what all the balloons say, right? It makes it really obvious. So again, up to you and your preference and how you want to set that up. So once we have all of these, right, we have all these inspection requirements that we can detail out per operation. We're able to go up here and say export ProShop CSV right here. And that's going to just push out a CSV file that we've curated for ProShop to be able to import seamlessly on their side. And they're able to import that to a specific part and a specific part check table at each operation of the process. And so if you break out the operations here on this side and you build it this way, you just import that entire list of checks per operation, and it'll associate them with the appropriate ops in ProShop on the other side. Okay, so really straightforward. We've historically demoed that piece of it, but for the sake of time, there's some other stuff that we want to share at the end of this session today. Obviously, we can do all sorts of training and get you guys up and going on how the specific connection works. Okay, so I wanted to take the last few minutes here to talk about a few things. So what we've gone over here are kind of some fundamental steps that most of our joint customers take to be able to balloon drawings and so on. But there's a couple of background details that we're working on kind of making smoother and more automated. So in particular, the way that this drawing gets entered into the system, right? So today, you would have to take the drawing, you come into High QA, you say new from Wizard or new from drawing or new from CAD. Like I mentioned, we could do 3D as well. And you have to go find that file and you generate a part record off of that. And then you come in here, you're going to say the part number that you want, the part name, the rev. So it's a couple of details, right? It's not a huge deal and customers don't mind doing this at all. But it would be nice if it was more automated, right? To eliminate the risk of potentially having like a typo or something like that. So one of the things that we are working on right now, and we have some prototypes of this, and we're soon going to be moving to the stage of deploying to beta customers for on-site testing, is a digital connector that connects between our API and ProShop's API, so that there's a seamless exchange of data in an automated fashion, right? So as you generate parts in ProShop, you should be able to just automatically push those records into High QA. We're still working out the fine details, but there's a whole bunch of options on the table about what we'll be able to do and different use cases that we'll be able to support. So for example, through our API, you can have from an ERP system, you can actually generate the part record in High QA. You can upload the drawing, you can trigger the auto ballooning process all automatically and mark the record as requiring review, right? By somebody to come in and make sure that the auto ballooning performed correctly. You know, we don't profess to have 100% accurate auto ballooning, right? We just profess to be the best at it in the world, but that means like 85, 90% accuracy most of the time. And you make a couple of small edits and specify things like the gauge category that you want, the designators. That's always going to be something that you're making a decision on as the planner, right? And so you're dialing in those pieces and then being able to just seamlessly push a button to sync those records back up into ProShop so that the part check info gets automated, gets populated without having to necessarily use a CSV to import back and forth. Okay, so that next stage in automation and connectivity between the systems is something that's soon approaching in the next few months here. Now that we're both companies have kind of gotten to that stage from a technology standpoint and having the right teams to be able to make that happen. Okay, so that's something we're really excited about. And there's also, for those of you that may have questions, there's a bunch of other things that we're looking to do as well. There's some scenarios where we have customers that utilize our data collection tools for inspection on the shop floor. And so being able to sync things like NCR records or syncing the gauge libraries so we can track usage history and such. And ProShop can deal with the calibration checks and the calibration history inserts on that end, right? So there's a whole bunch of scenarios like that we're evaluating, and we're open to any kind of suggestions that are anybody that's a joint customer already that's saying, hey, it'd be really nice if you guys were able to do this. We'd love to hear about that, right? Maybe you guys are seeing some needs or some value that we didn't necessarily think of. The other thing I'll say about that too is as we are developing or building these connectors, we have a couple of companies that we've already identified that are using both products who we're going to be working with as, I guess we'll say beta testers. So we'll set up like a staging server environment at their facility, and it has like a backup of the High QA and ProShop systems on that server so that we can test with their real data and then move to the next stage of putting it into production, right? So if there's anybody else on the call today in the webinar that's interested in working as a beta customer to provide us feedback on the connectivity and the use cases that we're supporting and the way that we're supporting various use cases, we're all ears. We're open to talking with you about that if that's something that you'd like to be a part of. Okay. All right. So with that, let's circle back here. I think we wanted to leave a little bit of time for some Q&A at the end of the session here. So let me pull back up. Oh, we did want to have, sorry for this slight break in flow here, but we did have one customer quote at the end of the session here. I'll leave it here. We're sending out the recording at the end of the session. It's a little bit of a lengthy quote, but another great example of a happy customer who very much enjoys working with both systems. Okay, and with that, we can move into Q&A. So Lisa, I think you're moderating.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris, and also Brian. Let's get started. We actually did have questions come in throughout the session. Again, just a reminder, you can still ask questions. Your Q&A tab is at the bottom of your screen, a little bubble there. So go ahead and type in. Okay, so the first question says, how long does it take to import an inspection plan?
Chris, do you want to do that, or should I address that?
Yeah, so I believe like importing an inspection plan to ProShop. So that's probably something more on your side there.
Yeah, okay. So basically, it kind of depends. Is the answer? It could be a minute. It could be 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And the reason that it depends is that it really matters on where you're starting from in ProShop. Do you already have records that exist, or are you trying to create records at the same time? You know, sub 5 minutes, easy, not a problem. But there are some flexibility and capabilities that need to be considered all at the same time. So again, we have different ways that we do that, but it's very, very fast. It's just a matter of knowing where you're starting from, uploading the file, picking the right configuration. There's already once you have your system set, there will be configurations preset, and those are just what you select, you review it, and you import, and then it's done. So very, very fast. Even for 100 dimensions or what have you, it doesn't take much time at all.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
it actually
I
looks
would
like.
add on.
Sorry.
I would just add to there real quick. Sorry, Lisa. That that's only going to get faster too as we develop the connectors to be able to make it just seamless push button sync.
Oh yeah, definitely. Where we're going in the future is going to make that faster and even more bulletproof, because nobody likes making mistakes. So yeah, I'm really excited for that as well.
So it looks like there's actually a second part of that question. It says, how much time would it save to import that inspection plan versus manually inputting the data?
Ooh, yes, I have a lot of experience with this. So a little bit of background. When I was a project manager at our company, I did not have this software. I did it all manually. I had Adobe open on one screen, and I would bubble tag everything, and I had ProShop on the other screen, and then manually type it in. Generally speaking, I would spend probably in line of 30 to 60 minutes doing sort of a standard size print for an aerospace widget, anything from say 40 dimensions to 100 dimensions. Now, of course, I did prints that were much larger, but half hour to an hour of manual entry time. So that, compare that to, sub 5 minutes, and that's really kind of what we're talking about. And at the time, I had a lot of experience, so I was actually pretty stinking fast at it, but it was still very time consuming. And looking back on it, I really wish that I had High QA, because it would have saved me hours and hours every week.
Okay, here's another question. Do I need to implement ProShop first and only after that add High QA, or can I run parallelly and connect when I'm ready?
Yeah, we'll work in whatever way makes sense. So we're really flexible and easy.
Yeah, I think we've actually had customers on board both ways, and it doesn't really matter one way or the other.
Yeah, no, that's a good question though.
Awesome. There's a couple here, Lisa, that I wanted to point out from the Q&A.
Sure.
I know we're running a little short on time, so we might not be able to get to everything. But there's one. Where did it go? I just missed it. Oh, there was one here from I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but Andres. ProShop mentioned purchasing. Does this also include supplier monitoring and performance?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So yes, definitely. When we talk about supplier performance, you will have a basically a contact page where you're able to log all of their, it's contact information and all of the connections and just sort of accounting systems and that kind of stuff. And that supplier performance is actually done automatically for the most part. There are several different key KPIs for suppliers, and on-time delivery, non-conformances, and all of that. Again, that is evaluated right in and reported right in ProShop. Managers and auditors love it because it's literally one click and the report runs and shows you what the previous month's performance was. So again, nobody has to spend any time putting the report together. It is all built in. Yeah, a good question though.
Right. And I'll just tack on to that real briefly here. This is one of the things that's great about, the better together thing, right? Of having ProShop in High QA, because ProShop hears that question about monitoring supplier performance. And you have Brian's answer to that of monitoring things like on-time delivery and other KPIs from a logistics and business perspective related to the purchase orders. High QA has some tools as well for actually collecting quality data at the inspection level too, and all of the submission package related to, even up through like something like PPAP, where you have P-flows, FMEAs, control plans, and so on. So if that's a side of the supplier management that you're interested in, just be aware. I'm not sure how much we've talked about that with the generalized customer base here, but it's something that addressing both sides of supplier management, having both things together is really powerful.
Yeah, great. I see there's another question from Maria here. Can ProShop be connected with another new shop system? I suppose to answer that fully, I would really need to know the context there. ProShop is designed to replace other systems. There is some possibility of integration depending on kind of what we're talking about. I mean, we work with what we refer to as captive shops, in the meaning that they're a small machine shop inside of a larger organization that maybe uses an enterprise ERP like SAP or something like that. And so there may be some things that we can chat about there, but in general, for most companies, ProShop is designed to replace other existing shop management systems. So again, to really be able to answer that question, I'd love to get on a call or have you get on a call with one of our representatives to really kind of talk about what your needs are and see if that's what does that really mean. So I'll notate that to one of my coworkers and see if you can reach out and make that connection.
Yeah, there's another one here from Sharon. So Sharon asked, is there capability to change tolerances from process dimensions, such as roughing dimensions that may have a plus tolerance that exceeds the drawing tolerance, something like that? Yeah, absolutely. And so I think I'm still sharing my screen. Is that right, Lisa?
You are indeed, yes.
Okay. So something that I didn't quite hit on, but glad there was a question to circle back to it. So when we talked about these operation steps in here and being able to create inspection plans per op, yes, these are, so like DIM here, for example, these are basic dimensions, so it doesn't necessarily apply directly, but let's pretend. Let's say that for whatever reason, or maybe the perpendicularity, or let's see. Nope, we'll do it this way, the diameter. So let's take the diameter, for example. Let's say for whatever reason, if we wanted to like have this be checked at a pre-plating operation, for example. So we're going to plate this afterwards. So I want this hole to be slightly undersized, right? Or oversized, because I'm going to end up adding some plating material to it. And so it's going to shrink the size of that hole. right? And so if I needed to do that, I can edit the tolerances here or the nominal or anything about this dimension really at this operation stage. And that has that, but that doesn't impact the inspection requirement at the finished operation. So at the final operation step. So they're all independently controlled. So even if you have one dimension that's checked at 5 different operations, you can have 5 discrete requirements for how that DIM should be checked or what the requirement is for that DIM at that each operation stage.
And to add on to that, in the ProShop side of things, we actually have a couple of tools in place to be able to differentiate between internally required dimensions and reportable dimensions to your customer. So when you're in ProShop, when you're generating a customer inspection report, whether that's sort of a standard form or using the AS9102 forms that are built into ProShop, either way, it can there's essentially a trigger to be able to pull certain dimensions in and keep certain dimensions out of the report. So the customer gets exactly what they expect to see, but internally you have everything that you need to control, again, at the operation level, as Chris has mentioned.
That's actually interesting, Brian. I'm not sure if I personally was aware of that. And so it makes me wonder because we can identify a feature as finished or not. But I'm not sure if that's something that's going out in the CSV file today. So maybe that's something that we can look at.
Oh yeah, sure. I can. Well, that one's a little tricky because there is a specific setting for it. So it's an optional feature for customers to be able to decide how they want to use it. So we'll talk about it.
Gotcha.
I suspect it's no problem at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Took a little bit of a leap there, but yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Let's go ahead and conclude with this one final question that came in. And actually, I'll address it to the both of you. It says, how long does it take to get up and running on the software?
Well, I'll go first here. So in ProShop, the typical manufacturing company, small to medium size. So once let's say we breach 150 employees or something like that, that's a little bit of a different conversation. But generally speaking, about a 3 to 4 month implementation time. And I use the term implementation on purpose because it's not just training the company and the employees how to use the software. It's actually how to incorporate the software for managing the business. So a little bit more than just a training session. And we have dedicated staff that work with each company to bring them to develop that training plan and bring them all the way through based on each individual company's needs. So like I said, 3 to 4 months is kind of the typical time frame that most companies should expect.
Yeah, and I would say from our side on the High QA implementation front, depends on the level of functionality that you're putting in place and kind of the business case as well, kind of like as Brian said. But our customers typically are up and running anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks, somewhere in that time frame. I know it's a little bit of a spread, but it really just depends on kind of the level of depth that you're looking to get into.
Chris, Lisa, before we conclude, there is just a question by Zach. Does High QA recognize dual dimensions? Chris, you can relate to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So by dual dimensions, I think like being able to convert between English and metric potentially, something like that. And so, yeah, something that we do have is a tool. Let me go into here. So we do have a tool where when you're setting up the part, you define the units that the drawing is originally in, right? So if this drawing is in English, I would have English here. But if I wanted to convert those to metric, let's say, I can come up here and say show alternate units, and I can actually have a drawing that's showing the alternate units directly on the drawing. And also I can generate any reports in that alternate unit as well. Okay, so kind of a seamless kind of switch between that and a toggle back and forth. It's always calculating though at a database level the alternate units. Oh, actually, I don't have the columns in here, but there's hidden columns in here that I just have turned off at the moment, where it'll show nominal, upper and lower in brackets, right? And that'll be the calculated alternate unit. So that's why we're able to do that from a reporting perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. And also thank you to Brian, to both of you for sharing all of this great information. It's very helpful. We do have our contact information here on the screen. If any questions come to mind later in the day, or if for some reason we did not get to your question due to time, we'll be sure to follow up with you directly following the session. You can also request a personalized demo at our website there, listed there on the screen. This webinar is being recorded as well, so we will be sure to share that with you in the next few days. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.